Yo, okay, there we go. And we are live. What's up, y'all?
What's up, everybody?
Okay, let me go over here. It's a little bit blurry, bro. You see?
Why is it focusing on the background?
Oh, it's focusing on the background, not on us.
What's going on here?
On us? Oh, there we go. Hey.
Look at that.
Much better.
Oh,
that was
just a little tap on the screen. Yeah.
All right. Well, life is good that you're able to get that.
Yeah.
For that. What's up, y'all? Hey, so as we get started, I want y'all to begin to post right here into the top chat. We're going to be answering as many questions as possible. Give us a thumb up if we're hitting on something that you like.
Yep.
Treat this kind of like the Black church. We're going to be just we're not going to be before you long, but we just wanted to have some open dialogue. And I wish this was kind of like the other platforms where I could actually add y'all, but I can't. So I need y'all to go and talk back to us.
Yeah. Amen, Kev. Yeah. Amen. Yeah. Amen.
And amen as I go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and
bottle.
I'm just go ahead and pop one just really quickly. So we're just going to have just a little bit, sometimes it kind of loosens up stuff. Boom. There we go. And boom.
Thank you, sir.
Very nice.
Appreciate you.
And if you just open up a little bit. Hey, I got to do that. Hey,
Ooh.
A little drop.
Ooh, look at that.
Drop. Okay. hey, it looks like
I got an amen.
Dr. Lewis is watching. Hey, this would be a great
good
thing for her. We're supposed to be hitting you up, but I know that she's traveling this week. We're supposed to have her back.
Okay, good.
On the podcast.
Good.
So tell her to come back from Chicago.
That's right.
We're going to have her on again.
Mm-hmm.
All right, get the party started. That's right, Kev.
There we go,
So
Kevin.
toast.
Cheers, bro.
Cheers. Thank you all for joining. So, all right, so let's get into it. Let's just start. So I think, needless to say, Jesse, people had very strong feelings about the episode.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we dropped it. We were texting each other like,
we were like, oh, I'm so excited. We were like,
whoa, okay.
Oh. I was like, did you upload the same video that we discussed? Because we actually spent like lots of time on it. And I don't think that the criticism was about the quality of the product, but it was just about the content of it, which I think is completely fair.
Sure.
But rather than try to run away from it, let's go ahead and have those conversations about reasons why.
Yeah.
I think one of the first things that I want to address is I thought this comment by Kel 3747, if you're out there, why don't you go ahead and read that? Because I really appreciated this and I thought it was really fair. And I want to kind of give some background to this.
Yeah. Okay. So Kel 3747 said, "Hey, bro. You've been an inspiration to me eating healthier. I don't understand why you didn't push back more. None of her assertions made sense, and it seemed that she just justified unhealthy eating habits based on emotional related reasons rather than scientific or nutritional facts."
Okay. So first off, the first part about me pushing back, I think that's such a fair, criticism. I think that, starting out, I think interviewing people looks really easy. I'm like, I could be Oprah myself and, and do something like that.
It's an art, right?
Yeah, it's definitely an art. And in my head, part of the reason why I'm not pushing back is I understand what the person's saying. And so I'm not giving deference for the other side of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is actually a fair thing, because even though I'm allowing that person like on the show to be able to express their opinion, I think it's also fair that we've got to push back and represent the other opinions. And so pushing back is not necessarily trying to be salacious and
because we want it to be a good podcast, right?
Yeah.
Part of that is having two sides of the dialogue.
That is true.
But at the same time, it's hard because, I know for me, I'm sitting there listening to someone who's an expert in their field.
Right.
And so it's hard not to just listen and be like, okay, I need to absorb all this information. I don't know if I'm going to have a response for it right off the bat.
Right.
You're soaking it up like a sponge. And I feel like that's kind of what happened with us.
Can we just say there, for a second, I think I had like a delayed reaction to the podcast. No excuses, but there was a lot going on behind the scenes that day.
Yeah.
But I think after that podcast, because we filmed for about an hour and then we put the camera back on because we had some other questions. And it wasn't until after she left where I was like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
A lot of those things kind of happened. And so I just think that she's so brilliant. Yeah. So well read and very well researched that it was kind of just taking it all in. But I think that the most important point is that we are able to give that other perspective in that moment. So we didn't understand. We didn't know what she was going to talk about.
Yeah.
But I think that we can maybe do a better job too, or I could do a better job of.
Yeah. I feel like that's an important thing for people to know if they don't already, that we don't really we don't do pre-interviews with any of these guests.
No.
Like we literally want them to come to the table, share a meal, and like let's just jump into a topic.
Yeah.
You know?
I knew that she was a non-dietitian,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was pretty interesting. And so I think that perspective has not been seen. So that's the reason why, like, I wanted her to come on.
Yeah.
But besides that, you know, we're not doing a lot of that pre-screening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that you're going to be looking at the comments and coming up and saying anything that we need to. What's up, Rodney? Hey, I see y'all. What's up, Raina? Let's go on the Observer on there.
Yeah.
Okay. The Observer says the word diet is misunderstood. When I talk about my diet, it's just about what I'm eating. It's not some plan. Correct. I think that's the way that I refer to my diet as well. I'm not talking about a regimented type of thing. But I think that she was going much more into the regimented approach to it, which I think we want to maybe let's start to dissect part of the podcast, right? And let's go into like, the diet culture piece.
Yeah.
There was one comment by Mercedes that I thought pretty much kind of summed up our feelings too about the reasons why we posted this. So it's important that y'all understand the intent behind the content as much as you understand the content itself. And I think that she kind of nailed it. Mercedes Evans,
8125. Yep. She said, I'm honestly still processing and unpacking all that she had to offer and her perspective. It was very interesting and made me consider things I hadn't previously considered in regards to this topic. I'm going to check out more of her content and see if I can better understand her perspective on some of these issues. As always, I enjoyed seeing what you brought to the table. I don't think this is a bad post in any way, and I think it's important to hear out, dive into, and explore all the information available. Appreciate the episode and sending out all the positive vibes. Appreciate that, Mercedes.
Yeah. We appreciate that. And we also appreciate the negative ones too, because we don't, listen, I heard all of them, even the ones that people who said that they unsubscribe. I don't think they really did unsubscribe. And we appreciate you staying around. But hey, your opinion, is your opinion, and we're not going to fight that. Now, let's get into the meat of the podcast. I want to first start out with the diet culture.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, first, Christina came out spicy.
Right away.
That was the first question.
We didn't pull that from later in the episode. That was literally how it came out. Yeah.
We weren't putting stuff together. We were eating. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. We are here now. We are going right in. Mm-hmm. And I think that people had a lot of trouble with the definition that she came up with diet culture. So I want to just point out just a few things, because we're not pre-screening these guests or whatnot, but I am doing my own research, and for all intents and purposes, I've been doing this for 10 years. So I've kind of seen stuff.
Seen a lot in the community,
I've read a lot.
Community, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I want to just read this definition of diet culture. That it's a widely held one. So diet culture is a social expectation that tells us how we should eat and look, and that if our bodies look a certain way, we are more accepted. Diet culture is dangerous and could harm people of all sizes, sex, and age. Now that is from a health system by a registered dietitian, Norman Regional Clinical Dietitian. And I wanted to bring that up because where am I going? Okay, there we are. All right. And so I wanted to read that first because I think that is the exact same definition that Christina gave. And if you Google diet culture, you're going to come up with that same thing. What Christina did, though, was I think that she went one step farther.
Yeah, she did.
With it.
Yeah.
And to talk about where those expectations of a certain size and look come from.
Yep.
And I think that is another important part, because having been in this industry, y'all, for 10 years and doing diet stuff, I haven't seen many people that look like me. I definitely haven't seen, many brothers that look like me right here. And, in some ways that's been like an advantage, because you're like, oh yeah, Kevin, you can stand out and you could be right here. But that part of the conversation needed to be there, because I don't think that people think about that. So when we talk about issues that aren't well addressed, I think that was the reason why. And it kind of relates back to the first episode, right?
It really does. Yeah. Yeah. Because that first episode dove into really important systematic issues that we have in the food industry, like access to food alone is there's so much that has happened just because of things like redlining and just Jim Crow era stuff that's carried over. It's just like it's still very prevalent. And so
Let me ask you a question. This isn't about diet culture, but this is about race stuff. When you hear stuff that someone says about white people or whiteness, what goes through your mind? Because obviously for me, I'm not jarred by things like that. I mean, I have a marginalized group.
I mean, I'm not personally offended by it, but that's because I know I'm not racist, you know, like, like I'm not personally offended by it, you know, like, but it's important to hear perspectives, because it's like, just because I know you and I know other people of color doesn't mean I've lived your experience, you know? Okay. So to sit at the table and hear a perspective is important to hear.
You're right.
And if something is like a trigger for me inside, where I'm like, oh, that's not true for me, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't true at some point.
Okay.
From like a whole group of people, you know?
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you heard that from her, it wasn't like a reaction to you, because sometimes I'm like, ooh, I kind of wonder what Jesse's feeling, but honestly, I'm not. Yeah. But since I know you, I've known you for what, like almost 6 or 7 years now. Yeah. And I know your heart. I know, I mean, we wouldn't be rocking together first off if I felt that he felt some type of way about race stuff, because we have to. Yeah. We're in close proximity. We got to travel together.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah. But I always just wonder, I was like, I wonder what he thinks, just because the reaction that I see online sometimes, just about any topic of race.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's take it to, I feel like there was a comment on the vegan episode we did where somebody literally was like, why is Jesse at the table? Like, why is he a part of this conversation if we're having this? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Why is Jesse there?
If anything, that was more offensive. Like, why can't I be at the table to listen in and hear something and learn a thing, like.
And learn a thing.
Yeah.
And learn a thing. Yeah. And I think that is an important part that I want to bring up too, is that, like, especially from a marginalized group, we can't become, like what we are accusing other people of, and being so closed off. And I think that is an asset to have you there at the table, because you're going to be able to speak. That's why I ask you this question right now, because you're speaking to people that are listening to me, but they're hearing you. Yeah. Yep. And I think that's a really important thing, that like when we talk about certain things in totality, you don't have to talk about, you don't have to, I take it personally, like, this is me. Yeah. No? Yeah. It's just. Yeah.
Which happens with so many different topics, right? Right. So many things. It's all of a sudden you internalize, I'm not that way. What are they talking about? Like, okay.
Right. Well, we didn't say that. So I wouldn't insert myself in those parts that don't contribute to me. Yeah. So I think that's an important point. Okay. So thank you for that. Yeah. Now back to this thing on diet culture. And I think we've got a lot of people. She opened up to, let's see here. I know. Okay, I really enjoy the way that you have this podcast set up and the thinking that is involved with the topics. I appreciate that, Kev. Thank you, Raina. The content of the episode requires to rewatch and take time to process the information that was shared. Absolutely agreed, because what she shared was so rich, and we're going to get into the crux of that and from a different perspective or from another voice right now.
Yes.
And I think that's such a great point, Jesse. And Dr. Lewis said the same thing.
Thanks, Tamika.
Yeah, but no, seriously, thank you for that perspective, Jesse, because I think it's actually really important. Now, I want to show y'all one of the top-selling books for anti-diet. It's this right here, and it is by an author, Christy Harrison, MPHRD. Let me see if there's a picture. So I want to just, first off, let me read to you. She gets into this book right here about dieting culture and whatnot. And I bought this book prior to Christina, coming on. And I just think it's really important that we're getting like different perspectives, because the parts that we did cut out some parts because it was so long. And one of my questions to Christina was, after she said that, is that the definition of diet culture always? Does everyone feel that way? And so I want to just read like one of the top ones. And what she does here is she goes into the historical aspect of how we came to be in terms of like idealizing a thin body. And so she starts out talking about how in the industrialization period from the 1850s to the 1900s, they're African Americans. There were Americans that were living in cities that actually more than doubled, right? And there was a huge like immigrant surge. And so she says that the emerging white middle class was looking for ways to assert and maintain a dominant position in relation to the new immigrants. and body size became a key point of comparison. So part of the rise of this thinner ideal to define the middle class was the contradistinction to the stout, sturdy immigrants. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to like distinguish themselves between, the immigrant population, and thinness became part of that. And she goes on to say here that these days, diet culture pushes, the narrative that the reason that we stigmatize larger bodies is because higher weight causes poor health. But in reality, though, fat bodies were deemed uncivilized and therefore undesirable long before all of the medical and scientific communities began to label them a health risk. So this is what Christina was also talking about and alluding to, that sometimes that the research is skewed in that they are trying to prove something. Yeah. So it's not necessarily that you're in like a large body that you're always thinking like, oh my God, this person is unhealthy and they're this and they're that. It has been, set up that way, like historically. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to show something just really quickly. So, and she goes on to all of the racist ideology that is behind this. And I want to show you what this woman looks like. Here she goes. This is Christy Harrison, MPHRD. This is one of the best-selling books on diet culture. Yes. And you can see that she is a white woman.
She's of my complexion.
Yes, she's Desi folks. Now, on the one hand, I'm bringing this up to show that there is a similarity. That this narrative that Christina is expressing is not one.
She's not an outlier.
Yeah. And she's not somebody too that's just like, I'm angry with the world, which I think that people tend to see. And I'm personally upset at the possibility that some people will now walk away having me, having shared that with this. Oh, okay, well then it's okay. Yeah. Because then that kind of proves that point about race, right? Mm-hmm. Is it more palatable now coming from a white woman? Yeah. Versus coming from a black woman. Yeah. And we just have to talk about that contradiction. Like we have to that's a huge thing, right? Mm-hmm. So what Christina was saying and sharing is not something that she just reached up and she got upset about, right? This is something that a lot of dietitians, this is one of the top dietitians in the country, talking about these things. And so I do think that if you are feeling a certain way. Yeah.
I feel like honestly, sometimes maybe people get a little uneasy if it's a person of color, expert in their field, talking about race being a key part of an issue. And all of a sudden they just jump to, they're just using that as a way to get their voice out there because race has been a hot topic for the last couple of years or something like that,
Expound on that.
And that's not okay. Yeah. You can't just discredit someone because right off the bat you think, they're just making it about race. That wasn't the point of this whole podcast. Not at all.
No.
Like we're talking about the way people look. And it doesn't make any sense for people to be like, you should be skinny, when genetically there are people that just can't look that way, that they see on ads and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like that's more important to talk about, So
absolutely, no, absolutely, because you can't divorce the two. Yeah, they're actually linked, right? Mm-hmm. So it is this idea though of certain messages becoming a lot more like perhaps palatable or whatnot from somebody else. Mm-hmm. But absolutely, I think that also we have to remember that these are opinions, that they are rooted in history, but they are like an opinion. And I think that separate from the diet culture conversation, but back to this whole thing with race, because whenever people think about this, we think about stuff in absolutes. Right. Yeah. And as I get older, you'll probably get to this part too. Both things can be true. Yes. Two things can be true at the same time, right? Like, so I think that people, from reading the comments, they walked away and was like, so eating healthy is racist now, and this is No, she didn't even say anything remotely close to that. Yeah. What she is saying is that the conversation And this whole part that even Christina talks about, that Christy talks about, this ideal of following a regimented eating plan in order to aspire to get some type of thinness, that's diet culture. Now, where does that aspiration come from?
Yeah.
And it's rooted in history here.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to people following, I think Kev said this on here about when I think about diet, I think about the stuff that I'm eating.
Mm-hmm.
It would be erroneous of anybody watching this to be like, oh, just because I'm eating healthy, I'm trying to be white. No, I don't think that was her message. And I think that's something that me and you can take back feedback for editing, right?
Yeah.
And that it wasn't that.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't saying you got to eat healthy. When you eat healthy, you're trying to be white.
Yeah.
She was saying that people that are obsessed sometimes with this diet culture and I've got to do this because I got to be thin and whatnot. That is coming from a place. Yeah. That's coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
And so you can't look at eating healthy just because you want to be white. No, you can eat healthy for a myriad of reasons.
Yep.
Okay, I think that we've gotten some. You want to read some of some? Okay.
It's Stacy saying, "Yep, tell the truth. That episode was harder to digest for some folks because it was coming from a Black woman. It would have been enlightening coming from someone else, though."
That. And can we pause right there on that one?
Mm-hmm.
So it was intentional for me to invite Christina.
Yeah.
Because her presence, her voice, and her perspective is largely absent from the wellness conversation. Yeah. And as we utilize our platform and we're trying to grow and have more conversations, I think it's important for us to have diverse perspectives, particularly in this field. So it was, deliberate. And I think that I kind of wonder what the reaction would be like if there was a white woman sitting there saying these things too.
Yeah, Tamika said, "Yep, the message can get lost if the messenger isn't received well."
Yeah. And I think that actually came about when we see that.
Yeah.
And then Desiree, I think Christy Harrison's podcast has diverse people on it, and maybe she's trying to use her platform to bring light to get different voices heard. Completely agree with that, especially within the wellness aspect, because we hear the exact same thing. Yeah. I want to maybe even just kind of go on now to this idea of her being a non-diet dietitian, and this idea that like it's inherently unhealthy.
Yeah.
And we did disagree, and we're going to show part of that this week. But the disagreement was much more of it's the approach. Like you'll see coming up, and I felt that she was kind of coming for me a little bit.
Yeah.
And lightweight calling me like orthorexic, right?
Yep.
Because I was taking things like brownies or taking things like sweet potato and making brownies out of them.
Yeah. And she just wanted to say like, why do you need to mess with a brownie to begin with?
Yeah. Yeah. Which I respect that, right? Why?
Yeah.
But my thing is like, I'm not doing it because I'm orthorexic. I'm doing it just because I'm having fun with food.
Yeah.
And if I can take a food that I really enjoy, like brownies, and make it something that I can eat every single day. Do you want to eat a brownie like that? Well, if I could, who wouldn't want to eat the things that they love every single day, right?
Yeah.
So my thing is like, can I play around with food so it can remind me of the essence of it? I don't think that's orthorexic. Yeah. So we have a disagreement about that, and we're going to show that because I think it's really important.
Oh yeah, because diets as we know it are extremely restrictive.
Yeah.
It just narrows everything down to what you're supposed to be eating.
Correct.
And that's not fun. That's not creative. That doesn't bring joy most of the time, Granted, I know, and I say that because I know there are people that find a lot of joy in structure and like achieving a goal and stuff like that, but we're talking about broad scope here. It's okay to mix up a brownie and create a healthy version if you want to.
Yeah. Or a more healthful version, because you don't want the dietitians to come for us, Jesse. They on the comment section tonight. So you got to be careful now.
They come for you.
Yeah, but it is the truth though. I think that having fun with food, like that's the whole purpose of this. Like, I mean, why did we put in rice and chicken instead of a pineapple? Having fun with food, you can put it into a bowl. You don't have to do that. So I think that we lose some of that creativity aspect whenever we kind of restrict ourselves. And you kind of do the same thing that you're kind of criticizing in a sense, right? When you keep going like a step further and saying, oh, this is too much.
Yeah.
Well, aren't you kind of being
now
too
you've
much?
also become restrictive in your viewpoint.
Oh, let's talk about that. Let's pull over Jesse. Talk to him, Jesse. Talk to him. I'm gonna have to pay you off, Frank.
I don't know. I don't want to get into all that.
So, biggest key thing, so Kevin Cox says the biggest key there is doing it for fun, not to achieve a certain aesthetic, which I actually agree with that.
Yeah.
Rodney Williams, potato brownies. That's right. I'm in too. Rodney, you know what? That's what you're gonna make it in life, bro.
He knows.
Purpose of potatoes for me, yes, absolutely. Having fun with food. Todd said,
I love that.
Having fun with food, also being healthier. The goal is healthy, no skinny.
Yep.
And I will say that until the cows come home.
Yep.
Like I do appreciate the fact that on our channel and our podcast, we have been advocating for people to be well and to eat happy, right? Not being skinny. First off, if you can be skinny, that's your own opinion. My opinion on the matter is that I don't think skinny is an aspirational word to be.
Yeah.
I think that some people are just thin, like naturally, but to be skinny is just more, and you're celebrating that. I'm like, well, are you nourished? And I'm going to be careful not to criticize somebody being like a smaller body, the same way that would be a larger body. Are you unhealthy like that? But I think this fixation on trying to be as thin and skinny as possible does a lot more harm.
Yes,
than good.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, if you're eating something, right, you're just at your natural weight. There are some people who just don't gain weight that much, but you have to actually do work to get to be skinny, right? So for me, that's kind of like there's a deprivation there unless it's natural.
Yep.
So that's why I'm much more of like, yo, we don't need to be trying to glorify that as much. And I do think that the diet culture that I have seen, which is why I'm very proud to be in the industry, is to kind of counter that and to show, no, we're not doing skinny recipes. We're not doing thin as in recipes. We are doing healthful recipes for people.
Right.
Unfortunately, though, we live in this digital age. And so I understand that some things like SEO, you're doing that for a reason.
Yeah.
Like you have to call certain things for a reason. But I just don't think that
But that comes back to the diet culture thing. Because why are those keywords? Why are those the ones that everyone's looking for? That shouldn't be the case.
That should not be the case.
We'd much rather a world be where people are looking for terms that are just healthy, well, all that kind of stuff, not skinny, six-pack abs, all that kind of stuff. But there'd be a lot of people that wouldn't make money. So,
and that is there it is. I mean, honestly, it comes back to how much money this industry makes. Like I tell people too, when they're trying these certain diets and trying certain like supplements and whatnot, you understand that the wellness industry is almost like $1 trillion industry. It is all about money. That's why you see all these products. And I mean, what did I say something the other day? Like, it was avocado oil and it said keto friendly. It's like,
oh my gosh.
It's oil. It's a keto, like anything to get someone to grab that product off the shelf.
Yeah.
And so you got to think about that. That's why I really want to educate people. You got to learn health and wellness for yourself. In fact, I think I'm going to embarrass someone on here, but hopefully she won't get too upset with this. But I thought this was a wonderful anecdote. But Dr. Lewis, she's been on her wellness journey, and she's largely just been like, you know what, I'm not going to look at certain things, and she's just been eating for how it makes her feel, and she's noticed a huge change. And I said, you've actually cracked the code more so than anybody else, that actually, that I know, because you're eating and understanding that like how I feel impacts that. And so eating according to that, she's accomplishing her goals and didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
And I think that is the brilliance of Christina's message to people, that like check in with your body.
Right.
How are you feeling?
How are you feeling after this? Yeah.
But the wellness community, especially here in the comments, they were like, can't say that because big people they need to know. They need to eat a salad, right?
Yeah.
Not something else. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever looked at somebody that was in a larger body and had like some thoughts about like, they're probably like unhealthy? or whatnot?
I would say, honestly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so too.
I feel like it's a stigma for sure.
I think so too. I definitely done that.
Yeah. It's like there's a certain like visual aspect that you're like, oh, like being that big is probably not good for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, where does that come from?
I mean, just what we've been taught growing up, that if you're overweight, you're unhealthy. Which to some aspect, like you get to a point where it is going to cause harm to your joints, to organs and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
But just to say, just because someone doesn't look like the ad they see in the mall means they're unhealthy. That's not true. That's where the nuance is, you know? Like,
it is.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to share a story that I've never shared before publicly.
Uh-oh.
And, but it's so true. And I think about this story often. And I was like, ooh, this is so embarrassing. So we used to go to a mega church, like one of the first ones, like a long time ago. My dad was a singer there. Huge. And there was maybe a speckle of black people in there. And we were one of those families. And so I'd have to go to the youth group stuff, had lots of fun. And I remember being there, right? And being in the youth services and whatnot, everyone's having fun. And I was always bigger than the guys. Like my legs were just bigger than the guys. And I remember doing this, like sitting up in my chair like this, because they would call me big anyway, but I didn't want to spread out. Yeah. Because
you were trying to hold it in, basically. Yeah.
And that was when I'm telling it was so embarrassing that I'm saying this out loud. This was when I was in 3rd and 4th grade. Yeah. Thinking about those things. And I was picking up on the fact that like, oh, I'm bigger, I'm not supposed to be. And I was hoping that my legs would not be as big. Now I'm just like, heck yeah, put them tree trunks out there because, you know, hey, they like it. But
but that's not high school. That was earlier than that. That's
3rd and 4th grade.
That's
and it's kind of sickening that if I got that without social media and whatnot, without, you know, all of the different ways that they can reinforce certain things, imagine what our youth are looking at today. Yeah.
They got to deal with filters and stuff now too. That can change the way your nose looks, can change the way your face looks.
Oh my gosh.
That's not okay.
No, it's not. I mean, your daughter's going to be growing up in this age of, you know, what is this, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, you know, like this whole thing where there is a fixation on how you look and how you present. Yep.
God, makes me want to throw up.
Yeah, because I mean, you think about the eating disorders and whatnot that people can get. So I think that Christina's point is very palatable. Now, where I think that there is some room to maybe push back on this whole idea is that if people have specific ailments, then I do think that a more regimented plan is necessary. Yeah. Because I have met people and work with some people who actually are addicted to food. Yeah. To the point where they don't even remember what they're eating. So what I like to work with them on is a lot more like mindful eating. And some dietitians will disagree with me here, but I actually have them do like a food journal. Okay. I'm like, hey, I want you to write down like what you're eating, and not as a way to be like wagging my finger at them, but I need you to understand what you're putting into your body. I need you to remember that. Yeah. It's not good that you can't remember what you had for breakfast this morning. Right. In fact, some of y'all, I mean, do you remember what you had for breakfast this morning? It's the exercise. I know, it's so crazy, right? We just put food in our mouth. We don't really realize it. But, you know, maybe you're not at risk for certain things. And the persons that I'm working with are. Right. You know, they've got a lot of health issues and whatnot. But I just think that those types of practices, we can't castigate everything. We can't say that everything is bad. Yeah. You know, because there are some good parts of dieting that we can take to apply to our own life. Yeah. That can add value. So I do think there's a little bit of a nuance thing there where me and Christina may not see eye to eye. And we did have that part too. Again, our goal was to try to make this, because y'all's attention span is like this. Yeah.
Watch the first 5 minutes of that video. I'm out of here.
I'm good. But we try to condense it down to like some of the biggest moments. But I think that's also a point where we may have just a little bit of a disagreement in how we approach that, and how we approach clients. Because I'm also a person too that does believe in empathy, but also tough love whenever you need it.
Yeah.
And she is the encouraging dietitian. I'm encouraging too, but there's a point.
Mm-hmm.
There's a limit to this madness. Listen, you ain't gonna put me on your hamster wheel. You're gonna get off, or I'm gonna get off.
We all need that in our lives sometimes too.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
So to some of the comments in there, like, oh, it's unhealthy and it's dangerous. First off, make sure that comment is not rooted in fat phobia.
Yes.
But secondly, they are right too, in the sense that, like, you do need to hold people accountable for what they're doing. There can't just be a blanket.
Yeah, I'm not going to let my kids just go around figuring life out on their own.
Yeah.
And think that everything's going to turn out okay.
Right.
Like, there needs to be some structure, some guidelines, some like healthy habits in their life that will ultimately bring more freedom.
Right.
For the choices that they can make.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of how I view it.
Yeah. Overall structure, I think that you brought this up too in the podcast. It's kind of like, the way that you would look at religion in a sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You need to have some structure, some faith, something to kind of help you to guide you.
Yeah.
I think maybe one of the last points that we should bring up, which I thought I have never heard this so well said, but the morality of wellness.
Yeah.
I was like, that needs to be a separate book itself, the morality of wellness. Mm-hmm. Y'all, in the past 10 years that I've been doing this, I have seen people adopt this like super ultra, like this. They almost seem to, it's almost like I'm better than because I eat this way. Yeah. And I've been at dinner with people and be like, I'm not going to eat that and risk my abs. Oh, man, we're in bad shape. Yeah. That's the last thing on my mind right now, my abs. I'm thinking like, do I want to have this surf and turf or do I want to have this?
Which of these three desserts sounds best to me right now?
I don't know. I'm not in a tiramisu mood right now. It's not even on my mind, but the idea, and now that is okay, I feel like, for under certain reasons, right? Like if you're doing a competition and you got a shoot, there's a purpose. But just this idea, and I'm not, you know what? Let's not be what we're criticizing either. If you want to live your life that way, however, I do think that looking down on other people because they don't adopt that same thing, I think that is where I'm drawing the line.
Yeah, like at one point, Christina, she mentioned like, okay, when it gets down, like looking back at your life, what do you want to be known for? Mm-hmm. And I feel like there probably are some people that if they got to the end, they were known as the person that was always eating healthy. They always ate a certain way. They always were in the gym. Some people would like that to be what they were looked back on. Yes. You know what I mean? And then, but other people, it's like, they wouldn't like that. They would want to be known for other things, Right. And so that's what we're saying. It's like, none of these can be full on blanket statements.
They can't be.
Yeah. They just can't be.
They can't.
There are different people, different things drive different people. Some people love structure. Some people love more flexibility. Like we can't just,
it's just that.
Yeah, we can't just say you're wrong because you're not doing it the way I think is right.
On both sides.
Yep. On both sides.
On both sides. I think that's really important because we don't want to be the same thing, right? That we're accusing other people of.
Exactly.
So this idea of the morality of wellness, I do think that's an important topic. Maybe it's a separate podcast that we explore because the way that diet culture, it gets deep and entrenched into people. And this whole idea of like the orthorexia and how that, relates to it. I was so glad that she was able to touch on that because I'm not sure about y'all. We didn't really get into this in the podcast as much, but as an influencer, I'm angered a lot with the stuff that I see on social media. Mm-hmm. I like about 5% of these videos, but I cannot stand these grocery store videos now. First off, let me tell you the first thing. People are only doing this because y'all are watching. They're only doing it because they're getting a whole bunch of views and because people just want to be told like what to do, what to eat and what not.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, right?
Yeah.
But the second thing that I really dislike about it is it gets into this morality thing like, ooh, this has this in there. Well, I wouldn't be eating that. Yeah. And da-da-da-da. And usually, first off, they're usually in the junk food aisle, and they say that. I'm like, so you went to the junk food aisle to point out junk food? So that's not heavily helping.
Yeah.
And secondly, you don't even shop at that store.
Yeah.
You're shopping at Whole Foods or some other, cost prohibitive place.
Mm-hmm.
But you're at the place that the majority of people can afford, and you're crapping on their food. And let me tell you, as somebody who got their start eating well on food stamps and going to Walmart and buying the blue box of like tilapia and buying the non-organic groceries and lost weight and felt good and created an entire career out of it. I don't buy that. I think it's trash. I think it's garbage. And I wish one of them makes the mistake to invite me on one of their podcasts so I can blast them personally. That's how upset I am. Just kidding. This is Kevin Unhinged. But this is the reason why it makes me so upset, because they're putting out this narrative that wellness is only accessible to this. And when you say that, then it reinforces this idea that wellness is too expensive for me.
Yeah, it's not true.
It's not.
Yeah.
You can, and it may be very difficult. I do agree that, that the markup, because again, this is capitalism.
Yep.
The markup on fresh ingredients is stupid.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that you can't eat well eating non-organic food.
Yes.
You can't eat well and make good choices shopping at Walmart.
Yeah.
And I encourage all those influencers, if you feel in type of way, and I'm saying this, then I'm probably talking about you. I encourage you all to go into the grocery stores that the majority of people are actually shopping at. And instead of picking up stuff to say what's bad, why don't you say, hey, you know what? Here's how I would create a healthy meal from these things over here.
Yeah.
And like it or not, I want to have an oatmeal pie from time to time. I don't need you to tell me that it's bad for me. Yeah, no, I'm not eating an oatmeal pie meal. I'm having an oatmeal pie because I want one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just my own personal rant.
I mean, didn't we make a video on making a great meal with a box of food from a food pantry?
From the food pantry, our $3 pasta meal. Yeah. And it's especially important right now. Like, we think that the pandemic did a number on the world, but people are still recovering from that. And even though it seems like people just did really well, there's a big population that's actually still struggling. The cost of food, everything is going up. So it's our duty to use our platforms, to use our voices to actually show that wellness is for all. It's not in a certain income bracket. Yeah. All right. Let's wrap up by going to some of these comments. If you have a question, please post those right now. We're going to start going through some of these. Jesse, why don't you start? Stuart's asking if this be viewable. Yes, it will be viewable later. We're going to save it, Stuart.
And Desiree said, what you view really matters. I really liked what Christy said about her body being the least important thing about her.
I like that too.
Yeah.
And gives good hugs. Dr. Lewis followed up. Not focusing on the scale has been so rewarding. I'm telling y'all, if you can throw out the scale, you're going to be all right. JWFN, I had to stop counting calories. It became an obsession. Oof. Sounds like she's talking to me, because that stuff. So I'll say this in two ways, right? I think if you're just starting out eating well or trying to get your, your groundwork down, I think counting calories is not a bad thing, because I think you need to be competent of maybe some of the caloric value of some of the foods. Because
to know what your caloric intake for a whole day is.
Yeah, just to know. Yeah, like I was eating 6 tablespoons of peanut butter on a sandwich and not even realizing that 2 tablespoons, just this. Yeah, I cried. I was like, no, don't tell me that. Peanut butter. I love it. Say, I wish you were my nutritionist. Rodney, I got you, bro. So, Rain, when it comes to discussing weight, there is a holistic approach that has to be taken to assess physical, mental, and spiritual health.
That's so true. That's so good.
I mean, there's no better way to go and say that than right there. I mean, stay active. And when I'm saying active, we don't need you doing a backflip into a burpee while bench pressing 2 girls on top of a skateboard for Instagram. It could be walking around the block. Yep. It could be going grocery shopping, honestly. It could be going to the mall. Yeah. Just staying active. And then the mental piece is taking time for yourself. Yep. Are you winding down at night?
Yeah.
You know, are you taking time just to improve?
Or while you're eating, are you taking the time to eat and think about the meal you're eating? Are you just shoveling in your face and finishing it and being done?
Don't talk about me, bro. It's good. I think so. I think it was good.
Yeah.
That's really good. And then spiritual health too. I think, you know, for me, I know that some people may not believe in faith or believe in that, but I think believing in something that's bigger than myself has really helped me.
Yeah.
It's really helped inspire me.
Yeah.
A lot more, because there's so many things that you can't explain in the world, but just like, you know, that understanding that there's a larger being out there, that God
gets you outside of your own situation.
Yes.
And says, I'm doing this because I'm going to be a more healthier version of myself for my family. I'm going to be a better version of myself for other people. You know, that's what faith is.
What it is.
That's what I think about.
Todd. Todd says, "What's next for Fit Men? Cook anything to look out for?" Yeah, Todd, I'll answer that. Actually, we are doing a complete relaunch of the product, so we'll be looking out for that at the top of the year. For people that are looking, if you're new to the channel and whatnot, I'm actually going to be doing a master class that starts out in January. It's going to be a 6-week course with about 10 modules, and each week you're going to be going live with me. We're going to be discussing it similar to this, answering your questions, so that way people don't start out the new year, new me stuff, and go cold turkey. I've done that, and I always like that. So I wanted to teach people what are the fundamentals of maybe just getting started of healthful practices and behaviors. We're going to get into the kitchen, all that.
Yeah.
So be looking out for that. And then I don't have them here in front of me, but meals.
Hey.
Here we go. Okay. What are your thoughts about managing food wellness when dealing with depression or anxiety? Maybe I'll take this one. Okay. Stacey, I think that's a brilliant question. So a couple things. I actually there's a video that we posted here. If you type in depression onto the Fit Men Cook channel, you'll actually see that. And I talked about what to do whenever you're depressed, because that's something that I've been open about and still am. One of the things that you should do, or I'm sorry, not you, but just anybody should do when they're dealing with that, is to make wellness easy for yourself. So some of the practical things I did was just buying cut fruit, buying cut vegetables, buying frozen meals. I don't care if you get into there and get you a healthy choice meal. Don't let these other people on Instagram tell, put that into your body. Put that into your body. It's good. It's gonna fill you up. It's gonna keep you going and get you to that next point where you can feel a little bit stronger, so you can go ahead and cook for yourself and do something else, right? So however you can get those meals in, go ahead and do it. Also, when you're doing this, I think it's really important that you maybe tell someone that you're dealing with these things.
Yeah.
So because accountability is really important. And having someone that you actually trust. Now, it may not be the person that you want to be there for you.
Yeah.
So that's a lesson that you're probably going to have to learn, or anybody out there would have to learn. But go to those people that are there for you and share that with them, because that really helped me out too, to have that outlet. In fact, even just talking to people.
Yeah, I feel like any type of depression or anxiety is always worse when you just keep it in your own head.
Yeah.
The voices always seem louder. The fear is always bigger. But the minute you talk to somebody, it's easy to be okay, why am I feeling this way? Thank you for talking and listening to me and letting me get this off my chest. It's always a beautiful thing.
Let me say something for all those women out there who, if you're in a relationship, if you're married or got a boyfriend or whatnot, and why does he come home so late, or why is he always at the basketball court? Think about that. Sometimes we need that release. Saying that out loud. And sometimes, especially men, we may not want to grow in front of our partner. We may not want to grow and see that type of vulnerability. It's important, but that right there, like what you just said, it's a real thing. Just saying it out loud is such a release. Yeah. So don't always be so quick maybe to think that something nefarious is going on. Yeah. You may just need that release to go and do that. And maybe one day you can have the conversation to open up each other, but
it's got to start somewhere, right?
It's got to start somewhere. You want him to be up there playing basketball or at the barbershop. Please push him over there, okay? Okay. Thank you for that question, Evan.
And someone tuning in all the way from Melbourne.
Hey, Melbourne. Hey, what's going on? Oh, we could actually tell them this is from Australia and Starwood. How do you say it in with an Aussie accent?
You think I'm going to try
Starwood?
What?
Is that Starwood? Starwood, mate. Starwood. It's Starwood. It's Starwood whiskey. Ooh, that sounds
when you
like
first said
Irish.
it sounded like you were like from Boston. Starwood.
Okay, let's just stop. But this is the whiskey that this is the one of the first Australian whiskeys, so I'm told, and this is their anniversary edition, and they sent that to us. It's been aged 4 years. Okay, last two. Let's say. I'm the opposite of some people. I was so skinny for the longest time, and I'm finally starting to put on muscle, but it didn't really happen until I shifted my focus to feeling better, not looking better.
That's good. Yeah.
Matt, cracked the code right there. It's about feeling better. I'm telling you, that stuff is it just empowers you a lot more to go and do that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to read that. What you got? You pick your last one.
Well, let's see. We got Michelle. I love seeing you with your family. I know family is a different dynamic reach. Any chance any of your family members guest starring or continuing their health journeys on your channel in 2023?
Yeah, anything is possible. But you know what? I may not do it with my family. Maybe I'll bring in someone like a Christina or someone like that.
Yeah.
Somebody else to go and do with my family, because I think that the way that your family responds to a family member is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Than
true.
It would be, So I've kind of learned that lesson as well. That change may not come directly through you.
So I don't need my brother telling me how to live my life.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care if he's Fitman Cook or anything.
That's exactly it. So there we go.
Gotta love families, right?
Yes. Let me just hit this last comment right here. I'm extremely overweight at 468 this morning. I'm trying to lose weight, but it's been a roller coaster. I'm 26 and just wanted to get to be a better me. Any advice to help me get me going in the right direction? Yes. So first off, I can tell just by the language that that you're using there is you seem extremely hurried about this. All right. And I want just to tell you, I want you to relax, and I want you to not be so hurried and so rushed. I understand that you want to go and lose weight, but when you're a rush like this, you're not giving yourself grace. And I am afraid that I've seen people just kind of go and gravitate and reach for any and everything to go ahead and do that. So relax, bro, or lady, relax and give yourself some grace and know that this is going to be a journey. It took you a journey to get to the way that you are, and it's going to take a little bit of a journey to get there, but it is possible. So take a breath, right? And the first thing. Secondly, I think that, defining, you want to get to a better me. One thing that I've worked with people who are, in larger bodies, as Christina says, and what the industry says too, is getting underneath the surface. As to why they are that size in a sense, like what are some of the underlying reasons why you feel the way that you feel about yourself?
And a whole episode on it.
Yes. Yeah, we did. Yeah. And understanding some of the contributing factors to that. Like I work with people who have lived with somebody and they are like enabling that. I remember working with one individual, and it was always something. And I kept saying, hey, like, what is it? And I had to really poke him, almost like a fight. Poked him, and he finally blurted it out. And he just yelled, I hate myself. It's like, all right. So now let's start there. Yeah. Let's start there with self-love. All right. So you need to let's unpack some of the reasons why you're feeling the way that you do, because we don't really realize the way that we feel about ourselves influences all of our actions after that. Yeah. So I can get you, the diet part is easy. The meal plan, you can go to my website right there. You can sign up for the master class. Yep. That stuff is easy. Mentality. But I want to get at, because since you put that in there yourself, talking about getting to a better me, let's unpack that. So I want you to find somebody. You can go to betterhelp.com, other resources out there, but I need you to unpack those feelings about yourself. And that's what's going to make your journey that much easier. Whenever you begin to love yourself and be content with where you are, but not content in that weight, perhaps, and in that body, but content with you.
Mm-hmm.
That will influence your journey.
Yeah.
I need you to be like DJ Khaled. That's what I need you to be like. Yeah. Hey, you're going to get this body.
Yep.
Y'all going to get this body and these gold chains and whatnot. Good. And that is what's going to make all the difference.
So good. And I feel like that's the perfect way to end all this too. This conversation that we're having this is why we need people like Christina to approach these situations and say that, hey, like, do you think it's better for this person who's struggling with these weight loss goals to just be constantly told that they need to look a certain way? Or should they be able to approach diet culture and say like, oh, okay, that's just a marketing ploy. They just want my money. How am I going to approach food? How do I feel about myself when I eat this stuff? Like, how do I go about becoming a better self? And that's why we need to hear these people out.
Couldn't say better.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We will do this again. If y'all like this, I want y'all to comment on the video like once it's live. Share this, and we'll start doing some after the shows because I really like this.
This was fun.
This is fun. Yeah. All right, y'all. Peace and love.
See y'all.